yeah. So, if you find that you like this video and some more content, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, so today's video was requested by G. I believe. So, it's kind of a personal travel or story times. Now, I'll be honest, I did have some trouble thinking of, geez, where have I been that I can tell a story about, right? And I'm like, well, I live in France, so that in itself is still an adventure, right? So I thought of why not just speak about my experience living in a French village. Yeah. So guys, I moved to a French village, and I'll never forget. If it's your first time seeing this or you don't know, I moved there for a relationship, but we are no longer together. But we were together for about 5.5 years. So he came from a village, and I remember the first time I ever visited this place, I was like, what? I could never live here. There's nothing. Now, keep in mind, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I lived in New York. I'm used to cities' environments, and it was quite interesting because when we visited each other's hometowns, it was like a different world entirely. So I visited this place. I found it peaceful, but just for the weekend. I was ready to get back to the south of France, where we lived, or closer to the city, as well, where we lived. And I'll never forget when my mom came to visit, she saw this place, and she said, this is not a place that you would really be happy in, And in a way, I feel like I tried to force myself to believe that I could be happy living there. No. And I don't think it was the place, I think it was also just the relationship. However, so when I moved there, it was at the end of COVID, towards the end of COVID. And, or, yeah, I guess a bit before the end of COVID, or mid-pandemic. And I was living in a beach view apartment in a little town in the south of France. I mean, it was gorgeous. But I won't forget, I remember looking at the news one day and I saw something about Pamela Anderson living in a town called Cassis. I believe it's Cassis. And this town was maybe a bit over 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes away from where I lived. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't live that far from Pamela Anderson. When she dated that footballer, I don't know. But it was a really lovely place to be. However, we both decided that the south of France was not ideal to really live there long term. So we moved to the village, where we were able to easily find a village home. This home, I didn't like it, really, and I know that saying this, it can sound really negative, and I hope it doesn't sound too negative, but it just, it was what it was. It was a house next to the church. A positive was that I did like waking up hearing the sound of the church bells in the morning. I thought that was so beautiful, especially on Sundays. slept, I swear. Okay, I had to move out of that top level and sleep on the second level. I never went back up there again, only to move out of that place. So, as you can see, this was probably my least favorite place that I had ever lived. There was no exterior. When you open the door, you're right on the street. But it was a village show, so, you know, it was what it was. I lived there for, I believe, almost 2 years. So it was quite some time. And, it was interesting because I always heard, this is the same in any small town, but how everybody knows everybody's business. And I just remember when I did get one of my first jobs in France, that was about 3 minutes down the street from my house. I don't know, just the people also came from the village, so this was a bonus point. But I remember speaking to my ex's mother, and she would tell me that something about my coworker, or I don't know it, and I would talk to different people, and I'm like, how do you know this about me? How do you know this about what? How do you know who I saw the other day? I mean, I just wasn't used to that. And the idea of it seemed charming, but then after a while, I could understand how it could be a bit annoying. But, you know, it just comes with, like, it's a small town life. The thing that I did love about being there was the fact that it was surrounded by nature. Untouched nature. I mean, it's just beautiful when you drive through the countryside. And it's all green, and the different farmers, and the huge, like, how do you say that? Producers, farmers, and you see, like, the apple groves, and the vineyards, and the cherry trees. It was just so beautiful. So sometimes we would just go on a walk and pick an apple from the tree, or when it was time for cherries, we would go and just get a big bowl and put cherries in it, even though it is illegal, technically. Just a few cherries wouldn't hurt, right? So I never had to buy cherries. Well, I guess I did too. I didn't take that much, in comparison to how many trees there were. Or sometimes there would be a neighbor that would be like, hey, come get some cherries, you know, so that was so nice to just get some fruits fresh from the tree. I did ATVs. I loved it. I never did this type of stuff before, you know, especially being in the city, and there was such a freeing feeling about living in a place like that. It took some time to get adjusted to it, but when you're in that environment and you are just going on hikes or doing the ATVs in the forest, I mean, it was so much fun. I do remember one time I went on a motorcycle ride, and I'm the kind of person where I want to drive the motorcycle, but you do need a motorcycle license to drive it. So I had to be in the back, and I'll never forget, and go ahead and judge me if you want, because I know it's dangerous. I couldn't stay awake to save my life. I fell asleep on the back of the motorcycle. I just couldn't stay awake. And thank God, I mean, we were safe, nothing happened. I mean, I get how dangerous that is. I closed my eyes, I wasn't like knocked out, but still, I mean, dangerous. That's why I say judge me, it's okay, I understand. So we just had to pull over, and I fell asleep on the grass for a good 30 minutes. I mean, I was knocked out, put me out like a baby. And let's see, we just had some really beautiful lakes and walking paths around, so it was really calm. I think the only thing that really kind of bothered me was the social aspect this is not me saying this, one of the girls actually did say that, you know, she did feel kind of bad because she knows that with the group of friends there, they can be kind of, is it hermits? I don't know what you call it, but kind of just talk to who they talk to, and it's not so easy or whatever to just kind of bring a new person into the loop. And also, I mean, I'm American, so I didn't communicate. It was still a struggle with me, the French language, let me say. So, I mean, I can see how on both ends this could be kind of awkward. But it's not just me saying this. People that live there had lived there for 20 years, but didn't grow up there and just kind of came as outsiders, said that they still kind of felt like outsiders in a way. But everybody, I'm sure, has a different experience, you know. But yeah, I just wasn't really feeling it. I didn't have the same interest as the people there. I feel that they would do, you know, village parties or go to the same people's houses every weekend and do the exact same things every weekend. And that's not saying that's a bad thing. It's just different, right, from what I'm used to. It wasn't my thing, but it's not a bad thing. How do I say? I think it wasn't so much seeing the same people, because obviously with my group of friends, we hang out with each other at our houses. It's just I had nothing to talk about with them. I didn't know how to, I don't know, it was just not my place, not my environment, I guess I would say. And also I didn't have the greatest connection with my ex's family, so this was kind of an added uncomfortability, I guess. Well, not all the family, just some immediate people in the family that lived in the area, and nothing bad, like nothing bad, or like, I mean, they were okay. I mean, one of them was a narcissist, but I just wasn't, it didn't feel like my space. I felt like a square trying to fit into a circle living there. But that's okay. I mean, that's a part of this thing, this adventure, this experience that I created for myself, and I'm actually really happy that I had that experience, because it taught me to not try to force yourself in places that don't feel right to you. Don't do it, no matter how much you think, oh, I can make it better, or it will get better eventually, or I just have to change this about myself, or be more accepting about this. If it doesn't feel right, don't force it, because it's just not good at the end of the day. But whatever, I'm really happy that I had this experience. So I did love when I met people on my own, I will say, because that gave me more of a sense of independence. And I met people at work, and I would go out. I met a friend who owned the only bar in a village, in a neighboring village, and so I would go there and have lunch and after work and hang out with some other coworkers sometimes, go on walks in the forest with our dog. And I met this really outgoing girl who came from the village, but she was like, I would never live here. I loved her personality. Sometimes you meet people, because I feel in my personal experience, sometimes French people, especially in that village environment, can be kind of, how do you say, is that proper English? I find myself speaking like this. How can I put this? Closed, but not in a mean way. It just takes time to get to know them, you know? But sometimes you meet people whose personalities are just open and bright and welcoming, and this reminds was more open and, you know, wanting to know you instead of taking time to try to, you know, different personalities, whatever. Anyways, she was just so bright, and I met her at work, and I remember there was this one lady, she must have been in her 50s, and she was just a pain, kind of, just annoying, just dry. And she didn't like when I spoke English because she couldn't understand it. And so sometimes I would speak English with this girl because she was so happy to speak to me in English. And the lady was like, "Desiree, can you go back over there and work?" And I looked at her, and the girl literally said in English, I mean loud, "Don't listen to her, she's stupid," or something like this, or "Don't listen to her, she can't understand anything, so whatever, ignore her." And she didn't understand, so we continued our conversation. I mean, I don't care anyway. But, you know, I did have that, I guess, kind of experience where one person wouldn't like that I spoke English, or I remember one time, too, she told my friend who owned the bar to speak to her, Desiree, in French because, you know, it's gonna help her, and also nobody else here can understand English, so it makes it uncomfortable for everybody. And my friend who owned the bar literally went around to a few different people, and she asked them, "Does it bother you when we speak English? Does it bother you? Are you okay if we speak English? I mean, is this true?" And everybody was like, "No, I actually love hearing it, even though I don't understand the accent. So beautiful, and it doesn't bother me, I don't care." So we were like, "Okay, forget her, and we'll speak in English when we're together. I don't even talk to you, lady. You don't need to understand anything." Whatever. It's not like I spoke English all the time. Of course, I spoke French to the people who I actually liked and I spoke to, but with her, I didn't care. So, yeah. And anyways, so I met this really outgoing girl, and she was actually getting ready to leave for Spain because she was actually an influencer in a way. And she has an Instagram and would take great pictures and, you know, TikTok and things like this. So it was really fun to meet her. And she invited me out to the cinema, and I just remember like going to the movies, and I don't know what happened. Somebody in the audience, I think, oh, there were kids speaking, not like kind of close to us. And I just remember she came along with a friend, and it was so funny because they're French, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, France, like, this place is so annoying. French people don't know how to," like, they were criticizing French people and how they behave, and how she was, "I can't wait to just get out of this country and go." But it was funny hearing a French person complain about other French people. Let's see. I also met a family, a mom and a daughter who worked with me, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses. I never met Jehovah's Witnesses before. And they would go to Peru for 6 months, and they lived at a campsite here in around this area, all around the village area, for 6 months, so they didn't have the expenses of a home, and they were gone. And she told me a story about how they were in the Amazon, in the jungle, and they went to this cave, and there was a sound that they heard. They had no idea what it was, and the tour guide was like, "That's Puma, follow me calmly, let's yeah, and I was kind of far from my friends, so I'd have to drive an hour or so away to get to see my friends, so I didn't go every weekend. I mean, that's exhausting, especially after driving so much during the week. But when I did get to see my friends, I had a blast. One thing that I do love is when I was living there was going to people's homes, like neighbors' homes, and how we would have 3-course meals. I'll never forget the first time not the first time. One time I had a meal with the family, and I looked at the time, I said, how long have we been here? It's been 5 hours. We've been at this table eating. I never sat at a table with food for 5 hours. Okay, I mean, I just loved how they took their time with the different courses, with the appetizer, the main dish, some cheese, and aperol. There were times when I felt that I was in the Discovery Channel. I would always say that, because we would go up to this old rock house, my ex's grandparents' house, which nobody lived there anymore because they passed away. But we would be there, and they would, I think it was there, or maybe somewhere else, but I saw them making boudin. I don't know what this is in English, but basically it's, okay, this is gonna be gross. Okay, just warning you. But they would take, like, the pig, is it the pig intestines, I think? And I think they would put blood in it, and then fry it, I guess, like a sausage, if that makes any sense. Hopefully, I mean, I could be way off, but this is basically the process. It was so gross to watch because I never saw anything like this before. I respect it. It's their culture. It was just a little bit shocking for me to see. I was just like, oh my goodness, I feel I'm in the Discovery Channel up here. Jeez. I tried a little taste because I'm like, okay, I'm in this country. I want to try what they like. I don't eat this stuff at all, but I'll make an exception if it's something that's adventurous to me, you know what I mean? Like if you go to another country and there's a specialty that you want to try that you would never eat otherwise. So I tried it and it just tasted like blood. I didn't find anything appetizing about it at all. Blood. Do we eat raw meat back home in America, guys? I'm gonna put a picture here. There's something, I forget. Okay, I forget the name. I'll put it here. I'll never forget. I went to a restaurant, and the person that I was with ordered. Is it steak haché? No, it's not steak haché. Something like this. But it was just raw meat. Maybe treated in some kind of way to kill bacteria. I have no idea. Raw meat. And I'm like, okay, this I can't do. This I cannot try. Because to me, it's like you just can go to the forest, kill an animal, and just eat it like that. Was the difference. But yeah. was driving back home at night, you'll see bunnies, like rabbits, hopping. I mean, this stuff I wasn't used to, okay? I remember one time I almost hit a deer, and that never happened to me before. This can happen anywhere too, right? But the deer was literally right by the front side of my car, and I don't know how I missed it, and thank God it didn't swerve off the road, but it didn't hit my car, thank goodness. The only scary thing about driving in these places, and there were a lot of car accidents, I'll get into it, is that you'll be going up these high mountain roads with no barrier protection, meaning that you could literally fall off the side of the mountain. Oh, it scared me so much, especially when the roads were smaller and you had a car coming on the opposite side. That wasn't fun. I remember I was going up the mountain by myself one night, and it was so foggy, and I had to try to keep looking at my GPS to see what curves are coming up and looking at the white line because it was that foggy on the road. I was going so slow. You couldn't see that far ahead of you going up that mountain road. I mean, it was just so scary. That didn't happen many times, only that one time I remember. But there was this place, in a medieval village, 10 minutes away, and it was sad because there was this 21-year-old kid, I think, and again with no barrier protection. I don't know what went wrong, but he got off the road and his car rolled down the mountain, and he didn't make it, and it was just like really sad. But I mean, there were so many accidents. I feel you could put up some protection. I think after that accident they put up a bit of protection where his car fell off, but I mean, it was pretty dangerous going through that village area. There was actually someone that we knew that lost his life 2 minutes down the street from where I lived. I think there was an animal in the road or something, but the car flipped, and yeah. So that was really the really scary part about living there, was the driving aspect of it and how kind of dangerous it could be. Let's see. I think another great thing about living in that environment where almost nobody spoke English was that it really did push me to, well, it pushed me to learn the language, number one. But also I really got a wonderful cultural experience. I think, you know, living there. I remember one time I went on a hike in the woods, not by myself, never by myself, okay? And we came across this little cabin that reminded me of something out of a horror movie, but it was a hunter's cabin, and there were just like big hooves hanging on the door. It just looked kind of creepy. And sometimes you hear the guns of the shooters, and that was, I mean, I didn't feel unsafe. It's just that sometimes there were accidents where hunters thought people were animals, I guess. I don't know, where they just shot in the wrong direction and people could get shot. So that's terrifying. But around where I lived, that didn't happen really, and there's designated areas, and the thing that I really like is their respect for nature. They don't just cut every tree down to build some property. It's protected. You can't just cut a tree. I mean, people cut down trees for firewood, and when they do go hunting, they can only kill a certain amount of animals to protect the wildlife there as well. So it's just a nice balance of just the respect that they have for nature. Living there, I kind of got into some village gossip as well. My friend who owned the bar had this lady working for her, and she couldn't stand this lady, so basically my friend opened up the bar, well, this restaurant bar this guy told him, like, you are like God in this village. You're like a celebrity. They love you. And he's like, tell that to my wife. And he got me a drink. I guess, you know, it was, the restaurant wasn't open. It was just after hours. We were just, you know, hanging out. It was just really funny. But, my friend brought this business from him, and she turned it from a bar into more of a restaurant. Classy, you know, and I think the village people didn't like this change very much. They were kind of cold towards her. I remember, oh gosh, so there's this guy that was connected to the family that I was a part of there, and I remember my friend told me that when he came, he asked for some ice cream, and she gave him some ice cream, and he was like, what is this? This is not good at all. Like, he was just rude, and I was surprised. I'm like, I see this guy all the time. What? I can't believe he would act like that. But some people were just kind of not the nicest towards them, especially this woman that worked for her. So this woman must have been in her 50s, right? And she worked there with the previous owner, and maybe she had some time adjusting. And this woman didn't even live in the village. She lived in a town about 20 minutes outside of the village. But I guess maybe she grew up there. I have no idea. Anyways, it was really hard because she is working in that business that's paying her, and to the customers that are coming, she is talking crap about her bosses, her new bosses, to all the village people that are they would not support him at all, and I was so surprised. I guess I shouldn't be, but in this town, it seemed, where I lived, it seemed that people really did support other business owners, which was so nice. I would also go to, on Sundays they would have a market where they sold, fresh fruits and cheese and flowers, and oh my god, they had the most amazing rotisserie chicken with potatoes. I mean, it's really nice points, it's good points, and some down points too, but that was life. In the village and every other village around, they would always do something called conscript. So basically, this is a pretty old tradition where the young men who are 18 and ready to go off to war would do like a celebration. And even though they don't do that still, like going off to war, they still do the yearly celebrations where they make floats and play trumpets and drums and walk into the streets, and a lot of drinking and a fair environment. I've been to one or two, and the one that was in my village, it was actually pretty nice. The people put together their own floats representing different countries and playing, I guess, the traditional music, I guess, from the different countries. I guess that was the theme, but it was nice, but I think it was really something that engaged the younger people from that village. Like I said, 18-year-old crowd. I think the only thing that was a bit interesting to me was that, because I actually talked to a girl that I worked with, and she was about 21, and I asked her about this conscript thing and if she's gonna keep doing it, because you have an option if you want to keep participating in it, actively. And she's like, I'm 21, 22, I'm done with that. That's something you do when you're 18, 19. No, there's other things to do. I don't want to take part in that, forever. And it surprised me because there was this group that I was around, and they're in their 30s, late 20s, 30s, still hanging out with 18-year-olds. Not just for the conscript thing, but just doing the same thing that they did when they were 18 with 18-year-olds, and to each their own. And one of the guys, he was like, yeah, 30, dated like a 19 or 20-year-old, and whatever, age gap, sure, but I was just like, don't they get tired of doing the same thing? But that's just their life there, I guess. That's just what they do. I think this experience was really the beginning of my deeper healing journey. This experience really pushed me to dive deep into some deep stuff that I had to face in order to really be my more authentic self, and to just, really do the work within. It's where I started to look at YouTube videos and listen to podcasts about trauma and healing, like anxiety and just childhood trauma stuff. Like, I really started to do the work then, and I'm so happy because it was such a blessing for me, even though it didn't feel like a blessing at some points. But I'm happy for all of my experiences that I had there. It's just a part of my story, and although it wasn't the place that I belonged, it's what I needed for that time period in my life. And while I'm happy to no longer be there and to be here at this point in my life, I'm grateful. Yeah. Yes, it wasn't the most interesting, exciting place to be, but it was just such a different world for me, a different experience, one that I never thought that I would have. Yeah. Anyways, thanks guys for listening to this whisper ramble, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Okay, peace.